Sophie here, and before you do anything else, I want you to say one sentence out loud, right now, wherever you are. Say, I am capable of speaking with confidence. Say it again, a little louder this time. Notice how strange that felt? That small discomfort you just felt is exactly what this entire video is going to dismantle, piece by piece, until speaking up in English feels as natural as breathing. Today, you are not getting another list of polite phrases to memorize. You are getting the real vocabulary that confident, articulate English speakers actually reach for when they walk into a room, introduce themselves, defend an idea, or recover gracefully after a mistake. By the end of this video, you will have more than 60 words and expressions at the C1 to C2 level, every single one of them tied to a real situation where confidence either shows up or completely disappears. Job interviews, presentations, difficult conversations with a boss, meeting strangers at a party, standing your ground when someone pushes back. We are going to build your vocabulary and your composure at the exact same time, because here is something almost nobody tells you. The reason so many advanced English learners still freeze up in real conversations is not a lack of grammar. It is a lack of the specific, precise vocabulary that lets you express nuance instead of just basic feeling. When you only know the word nervous, you are stuck. But when you know self-conscious, unfazed, composed, flustered, and unflappable, you suddenly have 5 different tools for 5 different emotional realities, and using the right one at the right moment is what makes native speakers sit up and think, this person is fluent. So here is exactly how today works, and I want you to commit to it fully for the next hour or so. Every new word will come to you inside a real situation first, never as an isolated flashcard. I will explain what it means using simple English, and I will always tell you the more basic word it is quietly replacing, so you can feel the upgrade happening in real time. Then you will hear it in a natural example. Sentence, sometimes slowed down and then spoken naturally, so you can hear exactly how it sounds in connected speech. For many of the words, we will build a short dialogue together, and at several points in this video, I am going to stop completely and hand the microphone to you. I will read one side of a conversation, and then I will go quiet. And that silence is not dead air. It is your moment. You answer out loud in your own words, using the vocabulary we just covered, before I give you a model answer to compare against. This is the single biggest difference between passive watching and active fluency building. E. And it only works if you actually speak instead of just thinking the answer in your head. Nobody is listening except you, so there is no reason to hold back. Let's talk for just a moment about why learning words inside context beats memorizing lists, because understanding this will change how you study forever. not just today. If I tell you the word resilient means able to recover quickly from difficulties, your brain stores that as a definition, and definitions are forgettable. They slide right out of memory within days. But if I tell you about Daniel, who got rejected from 11 jobs in a row, and on the 12th interview he said, calmly, "I've learned to be resilient. Every no taught me something the yes eventually needed." Suddenly that word is attached to a story, an emotion, a specific human moment, and your brain holds onto stories far longer than it holds onto definitions. Every word today gets that treatment. Context first, meaning second. Practice third. Let's get moving, because our first stop is one of the most universally dreaded moments in adult life. Walking into a room full of strangers and having to introduce yourself. Picture this. You arrive at a networking event. The room's is loud. Everyone already seems to know each other, and you are holding a glass of water just so your hands have something to do. This is the exact moment where your vocabulary either rescues you or abandons you. The first word for this scene is poised. Poised means calm, controlled, and graceful, even under pressure, and it upgrades the very basic word, calm. A poised person doesn't necessarily feel zero nerves, but nothing on the outside shows it. Listen to this. Even though it was her first industry event, she walked in poised, shook 3 hands, and started a conversation like she'd done it 100 times. Notice the connected speech there. Even though often blends together in fast speech, almost sounding like evento. Let's hear it slow first, then natural. Even though it was her first industry event. Even though it was her first industry event. Now try saying that sentence yourself, focusing on letting even though flow together smoothly instead of separating each word. The second word is self-assured. This means confident in your own abilities and judgment, without needing anyone's approval. And it upgrades the word confident into something with more weight, more internal solidity. Here's an example. He gave his answer in a self-assured tone, no hesitation, no apology in his voice. Notice how self-assured pairs beautifully with the phrase, no hesitation. That pairing itself is worth remembering as a chunk. Now, contrast that with our third word, unassuming. This one is interesting because it sounds like it might mean shy or lacking confidence, but it actually means modest, not showing off your importance or talent, even if you have plenty of it. An unassuming person can be deeply confident. They just don't need to broadcast it. She's actually the lead engineer on that entire project, but she's so unassuming you'd never guess it from talking to her. This word matters because true confidence, real, C1, C2, level confidence vocabulary isn't about being loud. Sometimes the most confident people in the room are the quietest ones. Word 4, personable. This describes someone pleasant, friendly, and easy to talk to. Someone people naturally warm up to. The recruiter said what stood out most wasn't his resume. It was how personable he was in the interview. Word 5, and this one is a favorite of mine. Disarming. Disarming. When someone is disarming, their friendliness or honesty makes other people drop their guard, relax, and open up. Her disarming smile made even the most intimidating investors feel comfortable within seconds. Notice the small phonetic detail here. Even the often connects into something closer to evend the in fast native speech, the N almost disappearing into the eat sound. Now let's build our first full dialogue. And this is where you're going to see several of these words working together in a real extended exchange. Because remember, real fluency isn't one confident sentence. It's holding a conversation. Picture the scene with me first. It's 6:30 in the evening. The conference room has been rearranged with high round tables, soft jazz plays. Under the noise of 40 people, talking at once, and you've just walked in alone. Person A says, "Hi there, I don't think we've met. I'm Marcus." Person B says, "Sophie, nice to meet you. Are you speaking at the panel tomorrow?" Marcus says, "I am, actually, a bit nervous about it, if I'm honest, but I'm trying to stay poised about the whole thing." Sophie says, "Honestly, that's a very self-assured way to admit you're nervous. Most people would just pretend they're totally fine." Marcus laughs and says, "I've learned pretending doesn't help. What about you? Are you presenting anything?" Sophie says, "No, just here to listen and meet people. I'm pretty unassuming when it comes to these events. I let my work speak for itself." Marcus says, "That's refreshing. Honestly, your energy is kind of disarming. I already feel like I can talk to you easily." Sophie says, "That might be the nicest thing anyone said to me at one of these events." Now, here is where we switch roles, and I want you to genuinely participate. I'm going to read Marcus's next line, and then I'm going to stop, and you are going to respond as Sophie, using at least one of the 5 words we just learned. Marcus says, "So what got you into this industry in the first place?" Now it's your turn. Pause the moment I go quiet and answer out loud as Sophie, describing how you got into your field, and try to naturally use poised, self-assured, unassuming, personable, or disarming somewhere in your answer. Here's a model answer for comparison once you've given your own. Sophie might say, "Honestly, I fell into it almost by accident, but I met someone incredibly personable at a random event just like this one, and she made me feel so comfortable that I ended up asking her 100 questions about her job." Did your answer sound anything like that? It doesn't need to match. What matters is that you spoke the word out loud in a real sentence, not just recognized it silently. Let's move to our 6th and 7th words before we shift scenes, because they belong right here in the social context. Standoffish. Describe someone who seems distant, unfriendly, or unwilling to engage, the opposite of personable. I tried talking to him twice, but he seemed pretty standoffish, so I gave up and moved on. And approachable describes someone who seems easy and comfortable to talk to, someone who invites conversation rather than blocking it. Even though she's the CEO, she's incredibly approachable. She'll chat with anyone at the coffee machine. Nice work getting through that first block. You've already picked up 7 solid words, and we're only just getting started. Let's shift the scene now, because confidence in a job interview is a completely different animal from confidence at a party. In an interview, the stakes feel higher, the questions are sharper, and your vocabulary needs to communicate not just warmth, but competence, credibility, and steadiness under direct scrutiny. Word 8 is composed. Composed means calm and in control of your emotions, especially in a stressful moment. And it's slightly more formal, more professional sounding than poised, which makes it perfect for workplace contexts. Even when the interviewer asked her about the gap in her resume, she stayed completely composed and explained it clearly. Word 9. Articulate means expressing your thoughts clearly, fluently, and effectively, whether in speaking or writing. This is a word you genuinely want said about you. He wasn't necessarily the most experienced candidate, but he was so articulate that the panel remembered him immediately. Let's hear the natural rhythm of that sentence. Notice how wasn't necessarily compresses in fast speech, almost losing that middle syllable. He wasn't necessarily the most experienced candidate. Try repeating that at natural speed. Don't slow yourself down artificially. Word 10, assertive. This means expressing your opinions and needs directly and confidently without being aggressive or rude. It's a very precise upgrade from just confident, because it specifically implies standing up for yourself. In the interview, she was assertive about her salary expectations instead of just accepting whatever number they offered. Word 11, credible, meaning believable and trustworthy, someone whose claims and expertise you can rely on. His answers were detailed and specific enough that he came across as extremely credible. Word 12. And this is a wonderful, slightly playful word, unflappable. Someone unflappable stays calm, no matter what chaos happens around them. Nothing rattles them. The technical difficulties during the interview would have thrown most people off. But she was completely unflappable. She just kept going. Now word 13. Tenacity, meaning a firm determination to keep trying, refusing to give up. The hiring manager said what impressed her most wasn't his skills. It was his tenacity, applying 3 separate times over 2 years. And word 14. Conviction, meaning a strong, firm belief. And when you speak with conviction, your certainty comes through in your tone, not just your words. It's not what he said in the interview that got him the job. It's that he said it with total conviction. Let's build a role play here, because this is exactly the kind of scenario you need to rehearse before it happens in real life. Picture yourself sitting across from an interviewer in a small, glass-walled office. You're ready Me printed on the table between you, a slight hum from the air conditioning, and the interviewer just finished reading your background out loud. The interviewer says, I noticed there's about an 8-month gap in your work history last year. Can you walk me through that? This is your moment. I want you to answer out loud, right now, as if you are actually in that chair, and try to use composed, articulate, assertive, credible, tenacity, or conviction somewhere in your response. Here's one possible model answer. Absolutely. Happy to explain. I took that time intentionally to care for a family member, and honestly, it taught me a level of tenacity I didn't know I had, because I was also studying for a certification during that period, which you'll see reflected in my most recent qualifications, recent qualifications. Notice how composed and specific that answer is. There's no apologizing, no rambling, just a clear, credible explanation delivered with conviction. That is exactly the tone we're building toward. Before we close this block, one more phonetic moment worth your full attention. Interview English is full of small speech patterns that make you sound significantly more natural. Listen to how "what are you working on" gets stressed unevenly in fast native speech. What are you working on right now? What are you working on right now? Notice the stress falls hard on working and lightly on the smaller connecting words like are and you. Those little words almost disappear. They get swallowed into the rhythm. This uneven stress pattern, strong beats on content words, weak beats on grammar words, is one of the biggest things that separates a textbook-sounding accent from a natural one. Try saying it again yourself, exaggerating the stress on working and right. You're doing genuinely excellent work so far. 14 words deep, 2 full scenes rehearsed, and we've still got public speaking, difficult conversations, workplace assertiveness, meeting new people at social gatherings, and the whole inner mindset side of confidence. Still ahead of us. Type 1. And I'll continue straight into the next block. No need to say anything else. Let's move now into a scene that terrifies even people who are otherwise completely comfortable in English, standing in front of a room and presenting. Picture this with me. You're standing at the front of a conference room. 20 pairs of eyes on you. A laptop projecting your first slide onto the wall behind you, and your hand is resting just a little too tightly on the clicker. This is where a different set of vocabulary becomes essential, because now confidence isn't about a conversation, it's about commanding attention and holding it. Word 15 is eloquent. Eloquent describes speech that is fluent, persuasive, and beautifully expressed. It's a step above just clear. It implies a kind of grace in how the ideas come out. Even the board members who usually stay silent during presentations were nodding along. Her explanation of the numbers was that eloquent. Word 16, captivate, meaning to hold someone's attention completely, to fascinate them so thoroughly they forget to check their phone. Within the first 2 minutes, he had completely captivated the room. Nobody was looking at their laptops anymore. Let's hear that phrase at natural speed, and then slow down for the connected sounds. Within the first 2 minutes. Within the first 2 minutes. Notice how within the almost blends into one soft sound, the barely separated from the word before. Word 17 is a full expression rather than as a single word, and it's an extremely useful one. To command the room. This means to have such a strong presence that everyone's attention naturally goes to you without you needing to demand it. She didn't raise her voice once, but she commanded the room from the moment she stepped up. Word 18. Falter, meaning to lose confidence or strength, briefly, to hesitate or stumble. And this word matters because confidence isn't about never faltering, it's about what you do next. His voice faltered for just a second when the projector cut out, but he recovered and kept going without missing a beat. Word 19. Poise as a noun this time, meaning graceful and confident behavior, especially in a difficult situation. She handled that technical failure with such poise that most people in the room didn't even notice she was rattled. Word 20. Gravitas, meaning a serious, dignified quality that makes people take you seriously and respect what you say. This is a slightly more advanced, more formal word, and it's genuinely impressive when used correctly. He's only 26, but he speaks with a kind of gravitas that makes people forget his age. Word 21. Resonate, meaning to have a meaningful, emotional effect on someone, to connect deeply with an idea. The story she told at the start of her talk really resonated with the audience. You could feel the room go quiet. Word 22. Galvanize, meaning to shock or excite people into action, to energize a group toward doing something. His closing line galvanized the entire audience. 3 people came up to him afterward asking how they could get involved. Word 23 is a phrase. To hold your own, meaning to perform well and defend your position, especially when facing someone more experienced or powerful than you. In the Q&A, one investor tried to poke holes in her numbers, but she held her own and answered every single question. And word 24, another phrase, to project confidence, meaning to actively communicate confidence through your voice, posture, and body language, even in moments you might not feel it internally. Before I go on stage, I always remind myself, you don't have to feel confident. You just have to project confidence, and the feeling usually follows. Now let's build a longer role play here, because presentations are exactly the kind of situation where rehearsing out loud changes everything. Picture the scene. You've just finished your 12-minute presentation on a new project idea. The lights come back up slightly, and the room shifts into question and answer mode. This is often the moment where confidence actually gets tested the most, not during the prepared part, but during the unscripted part. Someone in the audience says, "This all sounds great in theory, but what happens if the budget gets cut in half? Does any of this still work?" This is your moment to answer, out loud, right now, as if you're standing at that podium. Try to use at least two of the words we just covered. Eloquent, captivate, command the room, falter, poise, gravitas, resonate, galvanize, hold your own, or project confidence. Here's a model answer for comparison. That's actually the exact question I wanted someone to ask, because even with half the budget, the core structure holds, we'd need to hold our own on scope, prioritizing the two features that resonated most with our test users and cutting the rest for a phase 2. Notice how that answer doesn't falter, doesn't apologize for the question. It treats a hard question as an opportunity, which is exactly what projecting confidence looks like in practice. Let's take a short breath here. A little pause in the pace before we move into our next scene, because we're about to shift into something heavier. Handling criticism and difficult conversations, and that deserves a calmer entry point. So for just a moment, let's slow down completely. Close your eyes if you're somewhere you can. Take one slow breath in and out. You've already learned 24 precise, real, usable words today, words that most English learners never even encounter, let alone practice out loud. That is genuinely something to feel proud of, right now, in this exact moment, regardless of what comes next in this video. Okay, let's open our eyes and step into the next scene, because this next skill set might be the most valuable one in the entire video. Staying composed and confident. When someone criticizes you, disagrees with you, or gives you difficult feedback. Picture this. Your manager has called you into a small meeting room. The door is closed, and she's holding up a printed report with several sections highlighted in red. Word 25 is candid, meaning honest and direct, even when the truth might be uncomfortable to hear or to say. I appreciate that you're being candid with me about this. It's much more useful than vague feedback. Word 26, diplomatic, meaning handling a difficult or sensitive situation with tact, careful not to cause unnecessary offense while still being honest. She was diplomatic about it. She pointed out the mistakes without making him feel attacked. Word 27, tactful, which is closely related, meaning sensitive and careful in how you say something, especially something potentially hurtful. He gave the feedback in a really tactful way, focusing on the solution instead of dwelling on the error. Word 28, defensive, meaning reacting to criticism by protecting yourself, often through excuses or counterattacks, rather than actually listening. This is the trap we want to avoid. The moment she got defensive, the conversation stopped being productive. They just went back and forth. Word 29. The opposite quality we want to build toward, receptive, meaning open and willing to consider new ideas or feedback, even when it's uncomfortable. He stayed receptive throughout the whole conversation, even taking notes on what she said. Word 30. Constructive, describing feedback or criticism that's actually useful and intended to help you improve. rather than just to complain. I don't mind criticism at all, as long as it's constructive and gives me something to actually work with. Word 31, unwavering, meaning steady and firm, not changing or weakening, even under pressure. Despite 3 people disagreeing with her in that meeting, her position remained unwavering. Word 32, a phrase, to brush something off, meaning to treat criticism or an insult as unimportant, refusing to let it affect you. He just brushed the comment off and moved on with the presentation. He didn't let it throw him. Word 33, another phrase, to take something in stride, meaning to accept a difficulty or setback calmly as a normal part of life without becoming upset or overwhelmed. She took the rejection in stride. She was disappointed for maybe 5 minutes, and then she was already looking at the next opportunity. And word 34, thick-skinned, meaning not easily hurt or offended by criticism, able to handle harsh feedback without being emotionally damaged by it. You need to be pretty thick-skinned to work in this industry. Feedback here is direct, sometimes brutally so. Let's build our dialogue for this scene now. And I want you to really picture it, because this exact conversation happens in offices everywhere, in every language, every single day. The manager, Rachel, sits down across from you with that printed report. Rachel says, I want to be candid with you about this report. There are some real gaps in the analysis, and I think we need to talk about what happened. You respond, okay, I appreciate you being direct. Walk me through what you're seeing. Rachel says, the Q3 numbers here don't match what finance sent over last week. And honestly, this isn't the first time something like this has slipped through. You respond, that's fair, and I want to understand exactly where the disconnect happened so it doesn't repeat. Rachel says, I'm not trying to attack you here. I just need to know I can trust the next report without double-checking everything myself. You respond, I hear you, and I take that seriously. Can we go through the specific numbers together right now so I can see exactly where it went wrong? Now here's where we switch roles completely. I'm going to read Rachel's next line, and then I'm going to go quiet, and you respond as yourself in your own words, trying to use at least 2 of the words from this block. Candid, diplomatic, tactful, defensive, receptive, constructive, unwavering, brush off, take in stride, or thick-skinned. Rachel says, I do want to say, though, I think you're one of the most talented people on this team. I just need this specific thing fixed. Now it's your turn. Respond out loud as if you're actually sitting in that chair. Kiat. Here's a model answer for comparison. Thank you for saying that. And honestly, I'd rather you be candid with me like this than sugarcoat it. I'd rather stay receptive to this kind of feedback now than repeat the mistake 3 more times. Did you notice how that response avoids sounding defensive at all? It doesn't argue, doesn't over-explain, doesn't get emotional. It simply receives the feedback and moves toward a solution, and that composure, that willingness to stay receptive instead of defensive, is honestly one of the most respected qualities in any workplace, in any language. Let's do a quick phonetics moment before we move on, because criticism conversations are often spoken more slowly, deliberately in real life, and that slower pace is actually a great opportunity to notice intonation patterns clearly. Listen to how the voice drops at the end of a firm, confident statement. I hear you, and I take that seriously. Notice the pitch falling on seriously, a clear downward slide that signals certainty, finality, control. Compare that to a nervous, uncertain version where the pitch might rise slightly at the end, almost like a question. I hear you, and I take that seriously. That upward lift, even on a statement, signals doubt to a native listener. Try saying the sentence both ways yourself right now. First, with a confident falling tone, then with an uncertain rising one. And notice how different the emotional message feels, even though the words are identical. You've now covered 34 words across 3 major life scenes: social introductions, job interviews, presentations, and handling criticism. That is genuinely a huge amount of precise, usable vocabulary. And I promise you, the next block on workplace assertiveness is going to feel even more practical, because it's about something almost everyone struggles with: how to disagree, push back, and stand your ground without becoming aggressive or apologetic. Type 1 to keep going. Let's step into the workplace assertiveness scene now, because this is where confidence stops being about how you appear and starts being about what you actually say when your interests are on the line. Picture this: you're in a team meeting, and someone has just tried to assign you an extra project with an unrealistic deadline, and everyone in the room is watching to see how you'll respond. Word 35 is the pair everyone confuses, so let's separate them clearly. UGD, assertive versus aggressive. Assertive means expressing your needs and opinions directly and confidently, while still respecting the other person. Aggressive means forcing your opinion on someone, often disregarding their feelings entirely, sometimes with hostility. The difference matters enormously. There's a real difference between being assertive, which is healthy, and being aggressive, which usually damages the relationship. Word 36, a phrase: to advocate for yourself, meaning to speak up in support of your own needs, interests, or rights, especially when nobody else will do it for you. Nobody's going to advocate for you in this job. You have to learn to do it yourself. Word 37, to push back, meaning to resist or disagree with a decision, plan, or request, especially one that comes from someone with authority over you. When they tried to cut her budget again, she finally pushed back and asked for a real explanation. Word 38, to stand your ground, meaning to refuse to change your position or give in, especially under pressure from someone trying to convince or intimidate you. 3 people argued with him in that meeting, but he stood his ground because he knew the data supported him. Word 39. To negotiate, meaning to discuss something with someone in order to reach an agreement, often involving some give and take. Instead of just accepting the first offer, she negotiated for 2 extra weeks on the deadline. Word 40. To concede, meaning to admit that something is true, or to give up a point in an argument or negotiation, often after resisting for a while. After going back and forth for 10 minutes, he finally conceded that her plan was more efficient. Word 41. To compromise, meaning to reach an agreement where each side gives up something. A middle ground between 2 different positions. Meng, neither of us got exactly what we wanted, but we compromised on a deadline that worked for both teams. Word 42. To hold firm, meaning to refuse to change a decision or position, very close to stand your ground, but often used specifically about decisions rather than arguments. Despite the pressure from upper management, she held firm on her decision not to cut the team's budget. Word 43, a phrase. Kishul, to speak up, meaning to say what you think clearly and confidently, especially in a group setting where staying silent would be easier. If you don't speak up in that meeting, nobody's going to know you disagree. And word 44, to voice your opinion, meaning to actually say what you think out loud, rather than just holding it silently in your head. I regretted not voicing my opinion in that meeting. I had real concerns, and I just stayed quiet. Let's build this scene together now. Picture it clearly. It's a Tuesday afternoon, the weekly team meeting, 10 people around a long table, and your manager, David, has just finished explaining a new project. David says, "So I'm thinking Sarah takes the lead on this new client project, in addition to everything else on her plate right now." You, as Sarah, respond, "Before we finalize that, can I ask a quick question about the timeline? I want to make sure this is realistic given what's already on my calendar." David says, "It shouldn't take too much extra time, maybe a few hours a week." You respond, "I appreciate that, but honestly, with the 2 deadlines I already have this month, I don't think I can take this on without something else moving off my plate." David says, "I hear you, but this client is a priority right now." You respond, "I understand it's a priority, and I want to help make it successful, which is exactly why I don't want to spread myself too thin and end up delivering something rushed. Can we look at what could shift to make room for this properly?" Now, here's where I hand this over to you completely. David responds one more time, and then you answer as Sarah, using at least 2 words from this block. Assertive, advocate for yourself, push back, stand your ground, negotiate, concede, compromise, hold firm, speak up, or voice your opinion. David says, "Okay, that's fair. What would you suggest moving instead?" It's your turn now. Respond out loud as Sarah, proposing a solution. Here's a model answer. I'd suggest we compromise. I can take this on if the smaller reporting task gets reassigned to someone else this month. That way, I'm not trying to do everything at once, and I can actually give this client project the attention it deserves. Notice how that response never once apologizes for pushing back. It doesn't say sorry. It doesn't soften the request into a question that's easy to dismiss. It states the need clearly, and then it moves immediately toward a solution. That combination, direct plus solution-oriented, is exactly what assertive, non-aggressive communication sounds like. Nice work getting through that block. That's genuinely one of the hardest skills to build in any language. Standing your ground while staying warm and professional. Let's shift now into a lighter, more social scene, because confidence isn't only needed in high-stakes professional moments. It's needed just as much at a friend's birthday party. Standing near the snack table, trying to figure out how to join a conversation you're not part of yet. Word 45. Charismatic, meaning having a compelling charm or attractiveness that draws people toward you. A magnetic personal quality. Everyone at the party seemed to gravitate toward him. He's just naturally charismatic. Word 46. Magnetic. Closely related. Describing an intensely attractive personal quality, almost like people are physically pulled toward you. Her energy was so magnetic that within 10 minutes she had a small crowd around her. Word 47.
Effortless.
Meaning something that seems to happen easily, without visible struggle or strain, and when applied to social skill, it's high praise. The way she moved between conversations all night looked completely effortless. Let's hear the natural rhythm there. The way she moved between conversations all night. The way she moved between conversations. Notice, between conversations almost fuses into one flowing sound. The N softening right into the next word. Word 48. Gracious, meaning courteous, kind, and warm, especially toward guests or people you've just met, showing genuine consideration. Even though it was clearly her event, she was so gracious, making sure every single guest felt included. Word 49. Tactless, the opposite of tactful from earlier, meaning careless or insensitive in what you say, often unintentionally hurting or embarrassing someone. He made a pretty tactless joke about her job, and the whole table went quiet. Word 50. Awkward, meaning causing embarrassment or discomfort. Socially uncomfortable, a very common but essential word. There was this awkward silence after he asked the question. Nobody knew quite how to answer. Word 51. Endearing, meaning inspiring warmth and affection, something small and genuine that makes people like you more. His nervousness when he told that story was actually kind of endearing. It made him seem more human. Word 52. Self-conscious, meaning overly aware of yourself in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable, nervous, or embarrassed, especially about how others perceive you. I felt so self-conscious walking in alone, like everyone was watching me find a seat. Word 53. Comfortable in your own skin. A full expression meaning to feel confident, secure, and at ease with who you are, without needing to change yourself for other people's approval. The most attractive quality in that room wasn't anyone's outfit. It was the people who seemed genuinely comfortable in their own skin. And word 54, a quick but essential contrast pair, introvert and extrovert, describing someone who gains energy from solitude and quiet reflection versus someone who gains energy from social interaction and being around people. Being around people. I'm actually a pretty strong introvert, which surprises people, because at parties I come across as an extrovert. I've just learned how to turn it on when I need to. Let's build one more role play before we shift into the final stretch of this video, because this scene, joining a conversation you weren't originally part of, is one of the most universally nerve-wracking social moments there is. Picture it. You're standing near a group of 3 people at a party. They're already laughing about something, and you want to join in without it feeling forced or awkward. Here's a short model exchange first. You walk up and say, "Sorry to interrupt. I couldn't help but overhear. What's so funny?" One of them, Jenna, says, "Oh, we were just talking about how terrible we all are at cooking." Apparently, 3 engineers in one kitchen is a disaster waiting to happen. You respond, "Honestly, that's incredibly relatable. I once set off a smoke alarm trying to make toast." Jenna laughs and says, "Okay, that's actually impressive in the worst possible way. I'm Jenna, by the way." You respond, "I'm really glad I walked over here. That toast story doesn't usually go over this well." Now it's your turn to build the next part of this conversation yourself. Jenna asks, "So what do you do?" I want you to answer out loud, in your own words, as if you're actually standing at that party, and try to use 1 or 2 of these words: charismatic, magnetic, effortless, gracious, tactless, awkward, endearing, self-conscious, comfortable in your own skin, introvert, or extrovert. There's no single correct model answer here, because this conversation could genuinely go 100 different directions. And that's exactly the point. Real confidence isn't reciting a memorized script. It's having enough vocabulary in your toolkit that you can build a sentence on the spot, in the moment, without freezing. If you spoke out loud just now, even a simple sentence, you already did something most learners never do. You produced real, spontaneous English under a small amount of social pressure, which is precisely the skill this entire video is training. We've now covered 54 words, and honestly, that alone would already be a strong, full lesson. But we've got one more essential layer left: the vocabulary of your own internal mindset, the words you use in your own head when nobody else is listening. Because ultimately, external confidence is built on internal self-talk, and that's exactly where we're headed next. Type 1, and we'll keep going. This final stretch is about the vocabulary you use with yourself in the quiet moments before you walk into that room, before you hit send on that email, before you raise your hand. Because here's a truth almost nobody talks about directly. Your outer confidence, everything we've practiced today, is built entirely on top of your inner self-talk. And if that inner voice is working against you, no amount of polished vocabulary in front of other people will fully fix it. Word 55 is self-doubt, meaning a lack of confidence in your own abilities, decisions, or worth, that nagging internal uncertainty. Right before she walked on stage, a wave of self-doubt hit her, but she'd trained herself to keep moving anyway. Word 56, and this is one you've probably felt even if you never had the exact word for it. Imposter syndrome, meaning the persistent feeling that you don't actually deserve your success or position, and that you'll eventually be exposed as a fraud despite clear evidence of your competence. Even after 10 years in the field, he still occasionally battles imposter syndrome, that quiet voice telling him he doesn't belong in the room. Word 57. To reframe, meaning to consciously change how you think about a situation, shifting your perspective from a negative interpretation to a more useful or empowering one. Instead of thinking, "I failed the interview," she reframed it as, "I got real practice for the next one." Word 58, resilience, meaning the ability to recover quickly from difficulties, to bounce back after setbacks, stronger or wiser than before. What separates people who eventually succeed from those who give up isn't talent. Honestly, it's resilience. Word 59, vulnerability, meaning the willingness to show your true feelings, uncertainties, or weaknesses, even when it feels risky to do so. Admitting you don't know something in a meeting takes real vulnerability, and ironically, it usually makes people trust you more, not less. Word 60, authenticity, meaning genuineness, being true to your real self rather than performing a version of yourself you think others want to see. People can sense authenticity almost immediately, and they can sense the opposite just as fast. Word 61. Self-compassion, meaning treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you'd offer a good friend, especially after a mistake or failure. Instead of tearing herself apart after the presentation went sideways, she practiced self-compassion. She asked herself what she'd say to a friend in the same situation. Word 62. Inner critic, meaning that internal voice that judges, criticizes, and doubts you, often louder and harsher than any voice around you. My inner critic used to run the entire show before a big meeting. Now I've learned to notice it without obeying it. And word 63, empowering, meaning giving someone, including yourself, a greater sense of confidence, control, or strength. Learning this specific vocabulary today, giving a name to feelings you already have, is genuinely empowering because you can't manage what you can't name. Now let's talk directly about the shadowing technique, because I've referenced it throughout today, and I want to make sure you understand exactly how to do it correctly, since it's one of the fastest ways to build both pronunciation and confidence at the same time. Shadowing means listening to a native speaker say something and repeating it back almost simultaneously, right on their heels, copying not just the words but the rhythm, the stress, the exact melody of their voice, rather than waiting until they finish and then calmly repeating it in your own flat rhythm. It should feel almost like an echo chasing the original sound. Let's practice it right now with a full sentence from earlier in this video. I'll say it once, and I want you to start repeating almost immediately after me, trying to match my rhythm exactly, not just the words. You don't have to feel confident, you just have to project confidence. Try that again, right on my heels this time, matching the rise and fall of my voice as closely as you can. You don't have to feel confident. You just have to project confidence. That immediate rhythm matching repetition is what separates real shadowing from simple repeat after me exercises. And 5 minutes of this daily with any English audio you enjoy will noticeably improve your natural rhythm within a couple of weeks. Let's also talk about listening for the gist, because this is a skill that changes everything once you internalize it. When a native speaker talks quickly, especially in a real conversation, you are never going to catch every single word, and trying to is actually what causes panic and freezing. Instead, confident listeners catch the shape of the meaning, the general direction of the sentence, and they respond naturally, using small phrases like, I see, that makes sense, right, or got it, even when a few individual words slipped past them. This isn't cheating. It's exactly what native speakers do with each other constantly. If someone says quickly, yeah, so basically what happened was the client pushed the deadline up by like 2 weeks, and now we're kind of scrambling. You don't need every word, you just need to catch. Deadline moved earlier, now there's pressure. A confident response might simply be, oh no, that's rough. How much time do you actually have now? That response proves you understood the gist, even if a phrase or two got lost in the speed. Now, let's do one final practice exercise before we move into the fluency round. And this one is designed to become a habit you use outside of this video entirely, anywhere, anytime, using your senses to build spontaneous English using today's vocabulary. Wherever you are right now, I want you to look around and describe your environment out loud, but instead of basic vocabulary, try weaving in some of what we learned today. Here's an example of what that might sound like. I'm sitting at my desk, and honestly, I feel a little self-conscious doing this exercise out loud, but I'm trying to stay unfazed about it. There's a cup of coffee next to me, and outside I can hear traffic. It's a pretty ordinary moment, but I'm choosing to reframe it as practice instead of something silly. Now it's your turn. Genuinely, out loud, describe 3 things you notice around you right now and try to naturally include at least one word from today, whether that's poised, self-assured, composed, resilient, or any other word that fits what you're actually noticing or feeling in this moment. All right, we've reached the fluency round, and this is where we move fast. No explanations, no pauses, just rapid recall to cement everything into your active vocabulary before we finish. I'm going to say a sentence starter, and I want you to complete it out loud using any word from today that fits. Ready? Go quickly. Don't overthink it. Even though I was nervous, I tried to stay. In the meeting, instead of getting defensive, I decided to be. She walked into the room and I didn't agree with the plan, so I decided to. Even after the mistake, he remained. Nobody expected much from him, but his answers were incredibly. Nice work. That quick-fire recall is exactly how these words move from passive recognition into words you'll actually reach for without thinking in a real conversation next week, next month, whenever you actually need them. Let's do one final full recap, just naming the words rapidly so your brain gets one more pass at all of them together. Poised, self-assured, unassuming, personable, disarming, standoffish, approachable, composed, articulate, assertive, credible, unflappable, tenacity, conviction, eloquent, captivate, command the room, falter, poise, gravitas, resonate, galvanize, hold your own, project confidence, candid, diplomatic, tactful, defensive, receptive, constructive, unwavering, brush off, take in stride, thick-skinned, advocate for yourself, push back, stand your ground, negotiate, concede, compromise, hold firm, speak up, voice your opinion, charismatic, magnetic, effortless, gracious, tactless, awkward, endearing, self-conscious, comfortable in your own skin, introvert, extrovert, self-doubt, imposter syndrome, reframe, resilience, vulnerability, authenticity, self-compassion, inner critic, empowering. Here's your challenge. And I want this to be specific and measurable, not vague. In the comments below, write one full sentence in English, using at least one word from today, describing a real situation from your own life, past, present, or upcoming, where that word actually applies to you. Not a random example sentence copied from this video, a real one about you. I will genuinely read them. That single act, writing one honest sentence using a new word, does more for your long-term fluency than passively watching 10 more videos like this one. If today helped you, and you want more advanced vocabulary lessons exactly like this one, built the same way, real situations. First, real dialogues, real chances to speak out loud. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next one, and hit the bell so you know the moment a new lesson goes up. You walked into this video maybe feeling a little unsure about how confident your English really sounds. I hope you're leaving it with 63 specific, precise tools you didn't have an hour ago, and more importantly, with proof, real proof, that you can already speak spontaneously about job interviews, criticism, presentations, and meeting strangers. Because you just did it several times out loud in this very video. That's not nothing. That's exactly how fluency gets rebuilt, one honest, spoken sentence at a time. I'm proud of the effort you put in today. Keep speaking, keep practicing, and I will see you in the next lesson.